It Happened on the Job, the podcast for relatable conversations with contractors. Sponsored by Goodman Insurance.
Welcome to It Happened on the Job. We are your podcast for relevant conversations with contractors that hopefully brings a little bit of entertainment to you as well. My name is Mike. That is Brian.
Hello.
We're episode 39 today.
39.
With us today, we have Brian Morales of ProCal Lighting, president, CEO, founder, wearer of multiple hats.
Hey, Brian.
Right. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on today, man. We appreciate it. So kind of how we get started, give us a little history on you, how you got started in this industry and that journey to where you are today with ProCal.
That's great. Yeah, I actually started my career as a young pastor and found myself really bored after a while. So I decided to get into to construction, and I think
it's a natural progression, right? From pastor to construction. Yeah. It's natural. Yeah.
Like most of us, I think we do what we can with whatever craft skills we have. And so I shopped myself out to different residents and tried to do carpentry and plumbing and everything trade-wise that you could think of, but really fell in love with electrical. And so after a bit kind of running the gambit, I decided to actually get formally trained. So I joined the apprenticeship with the IBEW and had 3 years of apprenticeship before I hit the 2008 crash. And during that time, there was no construction work. So I decided that I can't support my wife. I had a young newborn child at the time and figured, I need to figure something else out. So I got out of the apprenticeship, but right away there was a company in Connecticut that was hiring a project manager. And I decided to take it because they needed somebody to kind of run around on the West Coast and help manage their projects. I didn't have to go move to the East Coast, which is nice with me.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what formally introduced me to project management into the construction world. And, I learned a lot of things the hard way. But then from that point, I decided, hey, I want to get formally trained as a project manager. So I started taking classes and doing those things and worked for several companies as a project manager for a bit. But at some point I decided, my last EC that I was working for decided, I think I could do this. And so started up the company in 2014. And right away, starting up the company, I found out that, man, I don't have enough money to do this. So I called my dad, who was recently retired from the FAA. And I said, hey, Dad, isn't your dream to always run a company with me? And he said, not close.
Didn't you think the safest place for your retirement money was a startup construction company? Yeah. Sounds like a sound investment.
So I somehow convinced him, and he got in as basically a financier and helped us to grow. At some point during that journey, I think he realized, I retired for a reason. I don't want to keep on working here. And so I bought him out, and we are where we are today, about 85 employees.
Wow.
We have projects all throughout California and doing some of the biggest clients like the LA Unified School District, the BART, San Diego Convention Center. It's an amazing journey in a short amount of time. So I definitely feel blessed.
That's awesome. So, just to kind of clarify, it sounds like you guys are doing a little bit, obviously on the bigger commercial side, some of the routine, like the maintenance and the upkeep of a lot of these facilities. Is that where your bread and butter is?
So our big part of our revenues is based off energy efficiency.
Okay.
We work a lot towards our clients figuring out where they can invest some of their capital and get a return on investment. In the same sense, try to get their initiatives and becoming more clean and green. We both design and then install on LED lighting and control systems. And sometimes they're very advanced, sometimes they're very simple, like changing out a light bulb. But most of the time, it incorporates some type of bond measure or some type of proposition, something that's tied to government funds, in which we need to really make sure we dot our I's and cross our T's. And so we've been really focused on being professional about it and making sure we get the right people on staff who are knowledgeable and have the same type of desire as we need to make sure we're doing it right. And then as we grew, we said, why don't we try different markets? So we tried the service market. We currently have a ongoing service agreement with the County of San Diego and their transportation division. We've tried new construction. We've tried maintenance. So we've kind of gotten into everything. But really our bread and butter is in those energy efficiency
The
projects.
conversions. Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, being relatively new to the game, right? I mean, you said you started ProCal in 2014. What were some of the key factors that allowed you to work for some of these big clients? I assume, could have easily just gone with somebody that they've gone with for the past 20 years.
That's right. Yeah. So it first started, I think, with me being knowledgeable of what their needs were. And that came along with me working as a project manager under larger firms, right? So
Right.
I had the experience and I had the knowledge of what their expectation was. But you can't fake and you can't talk your way into like, hey, years of experience or bondability or all needing. So we had to really work hard and figure out things more uniquely. Like what are our pay agreements? How do we, ensure that we have enough cash flow to get these projects going? We understood right away that there is this great opportunity for minority-owned businesses and small businesses. And if you get the right classifications.
Yeah, especially when it comes to government funding. Yeah.
Exactly right. You really have a great opportunity. So some of these larger GCs needed to kind of fill their bag in with some of these qualifications and they gave us some of the opportunities. And then when they found our work ethic, they said, you know what, why don't we just up this next contract to $1 million and so forth. And then we took it on, and we probably took it on sooner than we should have. And we took a lot of lickings in figuring out, man, that really was hard, but we were up for the challenge. And so we took a lot of that on, and every year we've kind of upped our game. Last year being our biggest gain of 21 million.
Wow.
And the thing that we learned through it all was we can't operate a $21 million company like we operated a $3 million.
So true.
I feel bad for my employees because they're seeing constant change all the time. Every year we're introducing new things, and I am a avid student of business now. That's my job, is just figuring out how to do business. And so, getting the right people hired, making sure everybody feels a part of the team, making sure I don't lose good talent, making sure we have good communications on all of our divisions. I mean, that's kind of my regular now. But it's exciting. It's very interesting. It's a great opportunity to be able to grow that quickly. But I always make sure that I'm doing the right thing by looking at the business and not just the revenues, because I've heard a lot of horror stories of people growing too fast.
Right.
We're trying to stay out of that statistic.
Yeah, no, and I think back to the change, I think it definitely can be frustrating from an employee standpoint if there's always change, especially if that constant change brings constant headaches and struggles and other things. But if you're doing it right and you're implementing things correctly and that change makes things better and easier, I don't know that, I mean, usually that it's pretty welcome at that point, and it's not as big of a deal for sure.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is the hardest thing is for our people who started with us, who maybe don't have the capacity to grow with us. That's a hard decision to say, hey, we're moving on here.
Yeah.
And not having a right place for them. I mean, we started our business in my kid's bedroom, 2 desks, and the bedroom actually had flames. So, and we didn't have AC in the house, by the way. So when it got summertime, it really got hot, and then you see these flames.
That probably didn't make it feel any cooler.
Maybe we should be HVAC contractors.
Exactly. It was like mental thing.
Yeah.
But now we have an office building, we have a warehouse, and every single change we make, it's like we can't operate like we were operating before. And so sometimes it's the skill level of some of our employees who've grown up with us, and sometimes it's like we can't just email each other and have that be the source of all communication. We have to make sure we upgrade that also. So it's all levels.
So going back to that minority-owned business, I think that's really important for a lot of people to understand some of those and whether it's minority or women owned, or there's so many different programs out there, especially when it comes to government funding or selection of contractors. Is that something that you were aware of and made a conscious decision to try and to learn about it and to be an expert on, so that it helped you with those things? Or is that something that kind of came along the way when you realized, and what was that process like as far as learning the ins and outs and how all that works?
So I first came upon it working for, again, some bigger ECs, and when they would do federal projects, it was something that like, hey, try to get a supplier who's, woman owned or something like that.
Right.
And I started investigating, like, why is this the case? Why do we need to do this? And there was an increasingly larger demand for those type of businesses within the federal government, but not only that, within different municipalities and any public entity, really.
Yeah.
And so as I started investigating it, it just came out from things like, hey, just registering your business with the state as a small business. That's a relatively easy thing to do. But then all the other certifications became that much more complicated, right? And the type of information they would want to know to ensure that you're telling the truth. You actually own the business, and it is a minority-owned business, things like that. So we endeavor to spend the time and the money to get as many certifications as we can. And really the play was, we can't get ourselves to the table by our experience. So let's get ourselves to the table with these qualifications.
You got to position yourself some way. And I think that's that's most important for a lot of people to understand is, there are some headaches and some financial, burdens that come with bringing on a lot of these things, but it's so important, and it can really gain you a lot of a big advantage in some of these bidding situations.
Every time we figured out new ways of getting another certification, we thought we would have it all together, right? It's like we have all of our financials, all of these proofs, but every agency is different. So all these different agencies want to see different paperwork. The last one we just got, which is our biggest achievement thus far, is we got an 8A certification. What that is the federal government certifies you as a minority-owned business, and they put you in this program that lasts about 9 years that allows you to work directly with the federal government, almost sole sourcing. And there is avenues where you can sole source to the government, so you don't have to compete.
Wow.
So these opportunity was one of those things that, like, hey, we got to make sure we get this and we keep it. And it's stringent. I mean, there's things that we have to make sure we report every year to stay in the program. But it wasn't as easy as just say, hey, my last name is Morales.
That didn't work, huh?
No, they actually wanted to see my father's birth certificate. And then even then it was like, well, we're not quite sure that he is not an American who went to Mexico and was born in Mexico and then came back to, they wanted to see the history of it all. So that, for me, actually, that was a great thing. It means
right. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing it the right way, that makes you feel better about the program.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we did all that. It was actually a 6-month process for us to do this application, and we finally got the okay. So we just passed our first year into it, and we're really learning a lot to try to figure out how to best utilize it. But it's been huge. Every time we mentioned it to our clients, their ears perk up. They seem a little bit more interested in what we have to offer.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So you said you guys are at 85 employees now. What was that? What's the process been like for you from a hiring standpoint, making sure you're getting the right people? Are you looking for people that have experience or that you can kind of teach them your way, or maybe no experience so that you can mold them, I guess? What's your ideal candidate?
Okay, so it's been a learning process. Initially, my thought was we can hire just smart kids straight out of college, and I'll teach them everything I know, and they'll be excellent employees. But when you're growing as fast as we are, you don't have that time.
I was going to say that might work when you only have 4 or 5 guys, right? Yeah.
So we had guys who were first-time project managers working on a $2 million project, and that is just a scenario that doesn't bode well. And so I learned that I need to hire the right talent. I need to pay what that talent costs. I can't try to cheat it and say, let me just hire some smart kids that are cheap. So we changed our initiatives there to make sure that we're actually hiring people that have the experience, bringing them on the staff, So we had to sell ourselves as, a company that's doing things differently, that's inventive, because we had to attract them to us now. I mean, it's easy to offer some college kid a job that pays well as a project manager when they want to get into project manager. But if you're trying to get that guy who has a 10 years experience from this larger EC, man, that's a hard thing to do. So we actually had to really work on our social media. We had to work on our branding and figure out how do we really communicate what kind of company we are. And we've been winning people over from that. But on the trade side, we kind of realized early on that, and labor, except for now, has always been a shortage. And it was hard for us to try to figure out how to bring people on and bring the right talent on who get what ProCal's about. And so we decided to go union. And what that did was it allowed us to kind of parse some of the local labor with maybe some Hallmark guys. So our Hallmark guys are still union also. They've just been with us longer. They understand our process. They understand our efficiencies. But we tend to mix them up with maybe new local hires that we pulled for a project, and then they get to learn the process from them. So we kind of have a mixed baggage there. So we were able to scale so much just because we were able to grab these local hires from the IBW and put them on these projects. And the other side of that is we're doing public projects. A lot of these have project labor agreements, so it fit well for what we were going to do anyways. But it's very evident when you have somebody come on new and they just don't get what you're doing. You can't bid like that. You can't run a good project like that. Your customer is going to see a different side of you. So we need to have some kind of commonality, some type of synergy between all our different projects from San Diego to the Bay. And the only way to do that was to have people who are willing to travel. And so we have a good 10 guys guys and girls actually, that are willing to travel for us, love our company, and they're mobile. They go to these different projects and they're either a foreman or a senior journeyman that can help kind of train the newbies. And we work really well that way. It's been again a big hurdle for us to try to figure out how that process looks like, but that's the only way we're able to scale and kind of move as quickly as we have been.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's being able to access the union to scale is key there. So I know one of the downsides maybe to the union sometime is that you never really know what you're getting, when you're getting people from them. But it sounds like you've been able to kind of
navigate,
and kind of hold on to a few key guys there and girls there that because you're able to keep them busy enough. Is that how it works, that you're able to keep them on?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, even if we have slow times, we're floating them because we understand that's what's going to keep them on.
Right.
So yeah, that we really cherish the guys who put in the time and effort with us, who have those skills. And I'm not going to say there's a broad stroke over union employees. I think you're right on. Sometimes we get guys who are excellent and others who, man, I don't even know how you got your journeyman license. But the key of it was, if we're communicating what kind of production we want, what kind of skill we want, and we make sure that we keep that line, then they'll respect that. And sometimes even the new hire we got will say, you know what, I don't think we should keep this guy. I've been in other projects with them. I've been in other companies with them. He doesn't know what he's doing, and they'll help us out. So it's a matter of kind of team working and figuring things out. I've definitely, I have a good amount of project managers who are good friends with all the business managers within the various unions. I mean, it's good to have good relationships there. So yeah, it's a big part of what we're doing.
So you had mentioned just a little bit ago that, obviously it sounds like prior to COVID that the skilled labor shortage and all that, but from what I gathered, you're not experiencing that now, right? Are you guys, with the growth, you're able to find good talent with that?
Yeah, right now, I would say if anybody's looking for good senior management levels, right now it's good. And the reason is a lot of companies are slowing down. They're letting go of those people. And so we've hired 2 new project managers in this time. And these guys are excellent. I mean, what they've shown me so far, they have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, where I think prior to COVID, the things were happening so great. Everybody was getting raises. No one was going onto the open market. And that's a lot different now. I think things have shut down. Investment has shut down. So those people are open. But we also, we have to do our due diligence in that. We get a lot more answers to our applications, but sometimes it's
doesn't necessarily mean that they're good people. Yeah,
exactly. So we got to make sure we have the time and allow for the time to do good reviews and good discussions with these applicants. But yeah, on the trade side, there's a lot of work that slowed down, a lot of private work that slowed down. So some electricians are available where they weren't before. But I remember in LA, we would go to the hall and we had 6 schools that were about to do. They're about to start, in this month. And man, we got to get like 30 guys out. And we call them and not one would answer the call. I mean, the labor was that short that I was like, wow. We didn't get one answer to this. So we had our 5 guys that we put on it, and that's about it. We had to incentivize. We had to say, hey, if you come over to our project, we'll pay you this much extra, or we'll give you this extra thing, or whatever it might be. That's not the case now. I think now it's a little bit more scary. Big projects are shutting down. One of the bigger projects that was planned in the coming future was a bunch of Kaiser hospitals, and all of those shut down. So a lot of work that was planned and people were waiting for now are not happening. And I think some of the electricians are saying, okay, I can't wait. I got to take this job. So labor in that sense is now more available. It's still tough. It's not where I would want it to be, but it's a lot better than it was.
Yeah. And so from a project standpoint or from a workflow standpoint from your side, it sounds like you guys through all this mess in the last few months have stayed relatively busy. And what's it look like kind of moving forward?
What's great is we have probably 5 different counties that we were working in during the COVID, and each one had their own health officer, their own ways about doing
5 different guidelines you had to follow.
Yeah. So trying to have some company guidelines into how we're to perform was really a trick. Do we take the most stringent and then put that across everything? Well, if that happened, that might shut down everything. So we had to be really dynamic about who was able to work, who wasn't able to work, how they were able to work. So we had a project in Sonoma County that was completely locked down. They weren't letting anybody in construction. But we had our San Diego teams and our LA teams continue to work. But there was always that threat, like we're about to shut it down. And it's like, wow, man, how do you run a business like that? So we try to be as dynamic and as nimble as possible. We made sure that, we took advantage of any government subsidy. I mean, we were participating in the PPP loans, and that helped us tremendously when we had that shutdown in Sonoma County, because those guys were like, look, if I don't get paid, I'm going to go back on the list. I can't promise you I'm going to be back.
Yeah.
So we floated them for that time. And the PPP loan helped in doing that. And then when work started back up, we were able to use the same guys. There was hardly any slowdown. So all those things we had to like make quick decisions, week after week. We had to decide how are we going to salvage this project and figure out what we had, resource wise and try to utilize that. But man, it was nuts. Even now, we have some of our teams that are mandatory to wear masks. Some counties who said, you know what, if you're 6 feet apart, you're fine. That makes it hard because sometimes our guys transition from one project to the other, and you got to let them know, hey, on this project, this is.
You were doing it this way last week, but now you got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what is you keep saying like we had to be nimble. What does your management team look like? How many of you? Who are you discussing these kind of details with, or these kind of decisions and making these decisions with?
Yeah, so my executives I have a VP of construction, I have a VP of business development, I have a VP of design and lighting services, which is unique to us because we do a lot of design work,
right?
And then my controller. So all those are the team that sits around our table, and we discuss, hey, this is what we need to go forward. I mean, we had a serious talk at the onset of all this of saying, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this might ruin us. So that were the 5 that was considering, okay, how are we going to make sure we last through this? That was the 5 that I talked to that said, what do we need to do to our company, make sure that we're running slim and lean? And that was a hard conversation because a lot of them.
Well, especially just because everything's unknown, right? You never know. Yeah. So unprecedented. You don't know what's coming.
We don't want to prepare. We're just going to need back another time. So we actually had to really figure out just how we were going to progress anyways after COVID and figuring out what our revenues would look like. I mean, there's still a huge unknown. We don't know what the ripple effects are going to be. And so a big part of it is just team working, is saying, okay, this is our plan. This is what we're going to do together, and we're going to go into it together. As soon as we have one person that is in disagreement, it could really cause a lot of fracturing. So we had to make sure, hey, we're all in agreement here. This is what we're going to be doing moving forward. And I have a good team. I think everybody who's in that executive team really cares for the company, really understands my vision for the company, really tolerates my newness as an owner. I mean, that's a huge part. I keep on telling them every time, hey, I'm learning at this thing. I'm learning, because I'm sure they get frustrated with decisions I make, but they've always been flexible with me and able to learn with me. And I think because of that, we were able to grow and sustain that. Once we hit that 5-year mark, for me, that was like, all right, we have something here.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe talk about, with that tremendous growth, which is amazing. And I think probably on the surface level, it's like, wow, look at Brian. He's taken the company from, 0 to 21 million. But obviously we've kind of touched on several different aspects of that. But what were some of the bigger difficulties that you guys, those growing pains that you're probably still dealing with? Yeah.
So one thing would be, of course, the talent, right? Not really getting the right talent in. Some of my colleagues, they always say this. Sometimes you have C players and sometimes you have A players. You really want to get the A players on to build a level company. And that was hard, because sometimes I didn't even know what an A player looked like. Or I would assume that this person would act as an A player, and they didn't. So getting the right talent was huge, and that was a big thing for us. So we had a lot of, I wouldn't say turnover. It was just more of a
trial and error.
Exactly. Yeah. We really had to say, okay, we threw this guy into the fire and he didn't know what he was doing. So let's get into some classes and some training. And then even then it's probably not soon enough. So learning that we needed to have people who were knowledgeable of those things. Cash flow was huge. We were really lucky to understand that we're financing all these projects. And as much as we love to say, hey, our terms say 45 net or 60 net, or it never comes in 35 or 60. Oh, sorry, we're changing our accounting system. It's
Whenever you want your money, just cut that in half, and those are your net terms, because it's usually going to be double until you get it.
So we had to chase an initial part of this. We had to chase after those really bad loans. I mean, I remember getting one loan that was literally like a 39% interest.
Jeez.
And that was just because, hey, we got to pay for this employees. We have to pay for these paychecks. I got to get money in, and we have to just buy ourselves 30 more days, something like that. And then we started getting smart. We started looking at, these contracts and saying, hey, let's negotiate back. Let's see if they will do something shorter. Mm-hmm. So in some cases they say, hey, we'll upfront you 50% of the project, and we'll do that if you guys can lower a couple points off. Okay, cool. Yeah. Or, hey, we really need you guys immediately on this. What would it take? Yeah, we want 15 days net on these kind of things. Okay, cool. We'll do it. So us learning how to negotiate really well with these contracts helped us survive, where we had, I think majority of contractors have what we call aging payables, or things that where they've already done the work and they haven't been paid for it yet.
Yeah.
We were the opposite. We had all this cash in hand and we hadn't done the work yet. So that was the only way for us to grow as we did, because we were opposite of what normal construction was. And we just got lucky with that with our clients. They really wanted us. They wanted us on the project. They understood we were small. They understood that we couldn't take on all this. So they said, okay, we could throw you some bones and help you out and make sure you get this project. So that was a huge part of how we were able to sustain it. But even then, I mean, there was times every week it was like, man, we don't know if we can make this week. We don't know if we can make this week. Finally got to a level where we were able to approach a bank on a lock and get that going for us. And so that helped. But then after a certain amount, it was like, we spent what we had. We have it. So let's take on this next project. And that was tough. But we learned some lessons to figure out, okay, we need to slow ourselves down. We need to make sure we're getting paid on time. We need to make sure that, our installations are good and our time and schedule is good, but we also need to make sure we're getting our checks in. Utilize that ability to kind of threaten a lien or utilize that ability to stop payment. Those things are key because you can't run without cash. So we got those efforts in right away and figured that out right away. And now we're in a really good cash position. But man, some of those weeks just were, if I had hair, I'd pull it out.
Your beard.
Well,
you got your beard.
you talk about it. I mean, you mentioned it being kind of lucky to be able to do some of those things or be in position to the way some of those things work. But I mean, I point to that negotiation part. So I don't know if we told you, we're in insurance, right? And we only insure contractors. So we see that all the time, especially from the insurance side. It's so important. I think it's very important for subcontractors, or special trade contractors, specialty contractors like yourself, to understand that you're not always at the whim of the project manager or the owner or the general contractor. I mean, you do have some power to negotiate there. And so, like I said, we see it from the insurance side, right? So one of our clients will send us something and say, these guys want us to have $1 million in this coverage and $5 million excess and $1 million. And we always tell them, well, go back and push back a little bit, because you don't need this. Why do you need this much of an excess if this is the type of work you're doing? Because a lot of these things, these lawyers draw up and are all encompassing, and these guys just throw it out to everybody. But if you push back with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of, hey, why, and asking those questions, most of the time they understand, and you're able to get some of those things relieved. So now you're not paying for an extra $10,000 in insurance for this one project that you don't need. And so, I mean, to that point, obviously there's that side of it, but some of those financial aspects too, as far as accounts receivable and payments and a lot of those things, that I think so many contractors are so, hey, I need this job, I don't want to screw it up, I can't say anything, that they position themselves and back themselves into a corner and just take whatever's given rather than trying to push back a little bit, which I think, like I said, you might have called it lucky, but I think it's smart on your guys' side. You guys took a little bit of the initiative there and went out on a limb and said, no, we need to do it this way. And it's obviously paid off. So congratulations.
And I'm curious about that. What was that agent that caused you to start pushing back? Was it somebody that you hired that said, hey, this is a better way to do it? Was it like, oh my gosh, I need to get paid? What was that starting factor?
So I think that our kind of the person who came to us and said, you know what, you need to really push back on this. Well, one, I got into the National Electrical Contractors Association really early. I'm now a board member of the San Diego chapter, but those guys have history.
So many years of experience.
Yeah,
exactly. Their dad's dad owned it, and then they owned it. All those things, and they could tell you, like, look, you need to press back on this. This is what. This is what's normal. What always scared me was you always felt as a specialty contractor, you're given this gift, right? I won the contract. I have zero leverage and
right.
Happens afterward. Like my leverage was in my bid and that's about it. Well, when the contract comes across the table, that's where the real work happens.
Yep.
Because now you're saying, okay, how I bid it is that what's in here? And if I'm waiting for 90 days to get paid, I didn't put that in my bid, the interest on those the borrowed money. So I need to make sure that I get this contract right. So it came from those guys, from a lot of my peers, but then I think we had really good partners, both in the insurance world and in the bonding world. Our bonding surety definitely, he kind of helped us, teach us some things of what we should look out for, things like that. I mean, I love that you guys are in the business, because I think not enough of us contractors see you guys as partners, just something else they have to pay for.
Right.
Understanding you guys as partners is a key to really being successful, because you guys can really help us out, figure things out, how best way to source things. So I really think it was a kind of a lot of different people, speaking to us and helping us out and helping us be more competitive.
Yeah. I mean, I'll speak to the association part. I think that's probably, if I had to pick one thing for you, I mean, and I don't know you from the last 35 minutes that we've been talking, but I would say that that's probably one of the biggest things. And a lot of contractors look at those associations as a burden or as why do I do this? But if you actually utilize it and tap into some of that knowledge and history and experience that's in those things,
save a lot of headaches.
Yeah, there's so much, and a lot of, if you're in an association, and you could probably speak to this, most of I would imagine there's not a single guy that you went to approach, or girl, whoever, in that association with a question that they went, you know what, Brian, figure it out on your own. I had to do it. You know what I mean? A lot of those people, if they're in that association, it's because they want to share what they've learned along the way.
That's right. Yeah. And really it's the precedence of what you guys have set up here, of different contractors sharing their stories. that's what happens in general meetings.
Yep.
And you get to know these different contractors, and some who just started just like we have, some who've been in for 100 years, literally 100 years. And it's like, wow, all the stuff that can be learned from that type of group. I mean, the guys who are in it for a long time, they tend to not be savvy about the next softwares or capabilities that these things happen. The newer guys are. So you mix those things together
Right.
and you get a really good source. And associations aren't just, a dues thing. It really is an advocacy for your industry. And for us with NECA, it's always been this shared, wisdom. And we know we're going to compete. We know we're going to see each other on the walks,
Yep.
on the bid walks. But there's something about just sharing, hey, I'm using this software now. It's been working pretty good for us and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean that now they're going to start stealing work from you. It just means like, hey, and I hope you share some good information with me too.
Right.
It definitely, there's sometimes, somebody's holding back some information. But I think in general, we all see it as, it's better for our industry if we all work together and make sure we're apples to apples on this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So what's the future look like for you guys? I know you said it's kind of a question as far as, the ripple effects of what's gone on the past few months, but are you seeing stuff? Are you guys still bidding on the same amount of stuff? Are bids slowing down? Are projects still picking up? How are things looking for you?
Yeah, so they've slowed down a little bit. We've seen some of the projects kind of push down the calendar, meaning, we thought they'd happen in the third quarter here, but now not maybe into the first quarter of the next year. And that's all part of that COVID thing, everything kind of slowed down. They pushed everything out. So that's part of it. But we really don't expect to see that much of a slowdown. We just expect to see a lot more competition. So I think because we find ourselves in the public space, we can anticipate that some of those guys who picked up that public or the private work are going to see the public as, hey, that's where the projects are. So we want to make sure that we're diversified enough that if we start losing a certain client, we can pick it up somewhere, another place. So we're definitely pushing more on our federal side and actually outside of California now to figure out, do we have opportunity there? We're looking at a project in Colorado right now. I'm excited. This is probably the first platform that I share this, but we picked up a new line, if it were, where we're going to be installing 5G towers and they're associated light poles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat lighting what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But really 5G. And we were excited about that because given the need for high bandwidth internets and things like that for everybody working at home, we kind of feel like, hey, there's going to be some money poured into this, whether the cities are doing it or the feds are doing it. So we're excited about that. We're just developing that now, how we're going to take that to market, how we're going to design around it, what we're offering. We're looking at different ways of funding things. So lighting as a service has always been something that has been talked about in an industry in the lighting world and energy efficiency world. And basically what that means is we'll change out all your stuff to LED lighting and controls, upgrades, and everything like that. But instead of paying us at one lump sum, let's do a 5-year contract in which we're maintaining these things. And so it's like it's as a part of your operating budget, right. And because you're saving energy, you're really not out any extra additional monies. So we're looking at that. Of course, that takes capital and money to figure out how that works. So we're working with some partners on that. But there's a lot of different opportunities for us to still have work and generate work. I mean, that's what we've been doing. We've been generating work. We've always been doing that. We've been coming into facilities and saying, hey, we can do these things. They have a payback. This is a great investment. You go after it. Or there's monies in the bond. We should use it. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Those kind of things. So we create work.
Yeah.
And I like that position a lot better than waiting for the next RFP and saying, oh man, I hope we're
going out there and bidding against everybody else. Yeah.
So I think that's another avenue for us to keep busy is we just need to find other opportunities to create solutions for our clients and how do we make new opportunities out there. One of the cool things that we have that we know we're going to not see the work like it was is our architectural lighting. So we have this RGB color changing lights that we do on these huge facade buildings. One of the projects we're working on is the Coronado Bridge, where we're going to be lighting up. It's a project that's been in the works for the last 10 years.
Wow.
And so those are projects that we know, no one's going to be wanting to spend on those. They're not going to want to spend all this extra money on this color changing lights for their building. Well, that's okay, but maybe we can look at this as an energy savings, right? Maybe they're already getting lit up, but it's by these old halogens that are running, all the time, and they're malfunctioning all the time. They're huge cost of maintenance. So maybe we're working into that, and all of a sudden now it's a savings to them, and they're able to get the work done. So we just have to create solutions, and that's what our sales team knows. We have to come to our clients with these solutions to make sure that we're not just coming asking for money. We're coming saying,
with a solution, here's why, here's how I can help you. Yeah,
exactly. And that's where contractors need to be now. I think we all have to think about what are we adding to the client and not just waiting for the next capital investment.
Yeah, I think that goes to just kind of point to kind of how society is now, right? I mean, there's so many businesses that have that give back built in, right? Like buy a pair of socks and we give one to, third world countries or so. A lot of those things. And those are the companies where, especially, this millennial generation and these younger people, that those are the ones that they want to see, right? They want to know that what they're purchasing has a purpose, or it's not just, just money that they're throwing away. So to that point, as a contractor, there's a piece of that you can build in, like, not only am I doing this work, but here's why, and it's going to help you in being able to package that all together and show that value.
Yeah.
I think is smart.
It takes more work up front, but it's completely worth it on the back end. So
yeah, for sure. So 21 million now, what's the goal over the next few years?
The goal is actually to do less.
So put your hair back.
Right. We decided that, one, we have limitations based off our certification. So our 8A certification actually has a limit to how much we can revenue.
For the small business certification? Yeah.
That certification based off the federal NAICS code, which is our trade code, is 16.5 million. So we have to make sure that our average over the 5 years is going to be that. We're fine because, our third year was like 5 million, our fourth year was 7, and then our fifth being 20.
Right. So
average wise, we're okay to do another 20 or so in the next couple of years, but really got to consider ourselves to start lowering those things. And I'm fine with that. I think one of the things that I told my team, we had an employee appreciation event last year. And I told them, I said, what we need to focus on is building a stronger base. Mm-hmm. We're growing this huge tower, but our base is really weak. So we got to grow a stronger base. And the way to do that is to slow ourselves down, to look at how are we operating, who we hiring, making sure it's efficient as possible, making sure we're holding to our values, those kind of things. So actually, the next 5 years, we're going to be reducing our revenues, but hopefully growing our nets.
Right.
And that's the goal. I think it's the right time. I mean,
yeah.
I'm forced now to feel like, hey, you can't have as much work as you have now. But I mean, we're excited. I think we're trying to build a lasting company, and that's how you do it. And we're excited to take on big projects still, but be more selective and bring on the right people, really provide that right service to our clients. I think one of the things that has always been on my radar is we're a lighting company, and I think it's 9 years now that we have the Olympics in LA.
Yeah.
And so after our 5 years of slowing down, we're ramping back up so we can win that bid on the opening ceremony and the lighting. Right. So that's my ultimate goal. I think if we reach that and we get that, I'll be like, okay, guys, see you. I'm out of here.
Hang your hat on that one and walk out the door, right? Mic drop. Have you guys been on any of the big cool stuff, any of the stadiums or any of those kind of things that you guys have?
So we've been working with the Gronky organization, having the development they're going there. They have this huge development happening around the stadium.
Right.
And so we've been talking to them about what kind of smart platforms, lighting platforms can happen in that level. It's still early on. The investors aren't there yet, and now they're probably even later.
Right.
But we're talking around with them. We're talking to them about their training centers and using some human-centric lighting that can help heal their athletes. So it's exciting.
Wow.
Really cool stuff with them. And then, like I mentioned, the bridge is probably going to be the biggest project that we have in the next couple of years. That one's going to be exciting and going to be really globally renowned because the bridge is very unique shape.
Yeah.
And anytime you light up a huge monument like that, a lot of people come and see it. And then aside from that, really our big projects have to do with our local schools. So we're going to continue to make our schools more energy efficient, help our kids to see their work on their desk. We really enjoy doing that, and it helps save us money as a taxpayer.
Yeah.
To lower the energy costs, but it's always outweighed by the increased cost of everything else. So,
Right.
Yeah,
like you said, you got to find those solutions inside those budgets and bonds and everything else.
Completely. Yep. Yeah, you guys paid for it, so
might as well use it, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, one of the things we like to incorporate, and I'm sure you've probably heard in some of the other episodes if you got to listen, but anything fun, weird, cool stories from coming up in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years that maybe somebody wouldn't believe, even if you told them?
Yeah. So we as an organization, as part of the association, right, NECA has been pretty well known in the industry, is one of the larger groups in trades. And I jumped in right away. I mean, I enjoyed the group so much. So on a national level, I kind of always had been participating in that. At one time, I actually was invited to speak in front of Congress about small business. Yeah. So I testified in front of Congress about, hey, this is what we need as small business. And that was great. So it's in our history books now. It's recorded as, in our records. And I thought that was cool. But then we had a convention in Philadelphia. And, the convention was already going. And I actually hadn't gone. I decided not to go that year. And I got a call and said, hey, Brian, we have a surprise. We haven't announced it yet, but we wanted to let you know President Trump is going to be speaking at the event. And I said, well, that's cool. And they said, well, we could get you on stage if you want to, but you got to get over to Philadelphia. I said, look, man, I don't know how many times you get to meet
the president.
Yeah. I don't care if you like him or not. It's a city. Right. So I jumped on a plane and got over there, and his whole speech that he had to the Electrical Contractors Association, I was on the stage with him, and then later on got to shake his hand. So
very cool.
One of those things, like, I can't, you would have never thought and believed in the short time that we've been in business I'd have these opportunities to do those type of things. But I think it's partly because I'm lucky, but partly because I'm really excited about the industry. I love the advancement that electrical industry is growing in, and I'm hoping to continue to grow with it. So that's been cool.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, we'll let you get back to your day. Thanks for your time. Before we do, we want to make sure we give you an opportunity to drop your plugs. Let the people know where to find you and how to get a hold of you.
Thanks. So ProCal Lighting is a design build electrical contractor. We focused on the smart lighting applications. So where you need smart buildings or smart cities, things like that. That's what we're good at. And also the RGB architectural lighting type fields. We can be found at www.procallighting.com. We have some great videos online that you can see our work on, but you could also see us on our Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're high in social media, and please follow us on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brian. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
It's been fun. We'll hope to stay in touch and see your work all over the state.
Yeah, good luck with the show. We'll definitely add it to our streams, and hopefully get some more viewers.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it, man.
Have a good one. Hey, thanks for listening. If you've made it this far, go ahead and give us a like or 5 stars or whatever means you like us.
Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. And check out our website for more video content and extras.
While you're there, shoot us a message if you want to be a guest. We'd love to have you on.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.